The Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic, originally published in French, 1855 and 6 in two parts. This work is a densely liminal book that stands at the crossroads of several important currents of thought within the larger context of Western esotericism. Eliphas Levi updates older traditions while also serving as a primary source for the theory and practice of Theosophy, the Golden Dawn, and the Thelemic tradition. For example, the theosophical concept of the astral plane was heavily influenced by this text, and numerous passages of Levy's are mirrored by Crowley in Magic and Theory and Practice. Levy's formula of the conjuration of the four provides the basic outline of the Golden Dawn sequence of elemental grade initiations, which incorporate his prayers to the elementals directly into the rituals. Additionally, Levy's remark on the symbolism of the pentagram, which comprises the 5th chapter of the first part of his book, along with his discussion of the Kabbalistic significance of the sign of the cross in relation to the concluding versicle of the Lord's Prayer, inspired the construction of the lesser ritual of the pentagram, one of the basic spells in the Golden Dawn magical system. Levy's theory of the astral light restates a basic thesis of Marsilio Ficino and shared by subsequent early modern magicians such as Pico and Agrippa, which is that the soul of the world is the medium within and whereby natural magic causes its effects. Now, this idea had already been updated in the Age of Reason by Franz Mesmer and others in line with Michael Faraday's discovery of the electromagnetic field into something like a general field theory of magic. What Levy does is basically restate this theory, largely intact from mesmerism, in terms assimilable to the reigning philosophy of positivism, then fashionable in the Salon Society of the Second French Empire, thereby rebranding natural magic as occult science. Later, Blavatsky runs with this, and the result is the emergence in the late 19th and early 20th centuries of an occult milieu suffused with attitudes of literalism and scientism towards esoteric spirituality. What gets lost in this context from earlier modern expressions of Western esotericism is the more hermeneutical, allegorical, and symbolic modes of interpretation, spirituality, represented by the milieu of the Rosicrucian manifestos, Baroque alchemical writings, and visionaries like Swedenborg, Burma, and Blake. Thelema swings back in this direction, in common with other modernist symbolist movements. Crowley's use of a skeptical methodology in his theory of magic is both more genuinely scientific in method than the excessively positivistic paradigm of so-called occult science, and it helped influence Western esotericism in a constructive direction by paving the way for a more psychological interpretation of magical practice, furthered by figures like Israel Regardie et al. And this mode of hermeneutics is open to psychoanalytical, phenomenological, and existential readings of magical traditions. Given this interpretive agenda, which I share, my main interest in Levy's work lies a little apart from his scientific claims, rather in the aesthetics of his style. His inspiring vision of the vocation of the magus, the Enlightenment aspects of his theurgic theory, such as his identification of reason with the absolute, and the version of Luciferian Gnosticism that he ironically presents alongside some extremely unconvincing declarations of Roman Catholic orthodoxy. The chapter entitled The Sabbath of the Sorcerers is particularly interesting, as it includes a fully magical and pagan interpretation of Baphomet, the alleged idol of the Templars, as a theurgic god form of the great magical agent. And this chapter, as well as other passages in the book, are clearly a major inspiration for Crowley's reading and interpretation of Baphomet. There are traces of sex magical symbolism scattered throughout the text, most notably in the chapter on magical equilibrium. Here, Levy describes how alongside the heart and the brain, the genital organ, as he calls it, acts as a center of fluidic attraction and projection in the body. Then he explains, quote, when the magus has attained lucidity, whether through the mediation of a pythoness or by his own development, he communicates and directs at will the magnetic vibrations in the whole mass of the astral light, the currents of which he divines by means of the magic wand, which is a perfected divining rod. The allegory is obvious and clearly influenced the style of Crowley's evasive references to the subject of sex magic in Magic and Theory and Practice and other texts.